Welcome back, everyone. This is Austin Revel with 2F Tactical, bringing you our From the Vault series, featuring rare, historical, and just unique firearms that come through our shop or from my own personal collection. We try to bring you the ones in the shop first because those are available to you, a chance for you to own, and get to take home a little piece of history, something to enhance the collection, or even just feel what those that came before us felt. Uh, Firearms are unique in the sense that these things still work. Most of the time, you can still find ammo for them and you get to shoot them. It gives you just a little taste of maybe what our grandfathers or fathers or even great grandfathers might have felt. That's not true for every piece of history. You know, if you have an autographed letter from, say, George Washington, it's not something you can necessarily hold due to its age and brittleness. Firearms are a little bit different. So they've always fascinated me, and hopefully they'll bring that fascination to you with this series. We have another one available in the shop today, and that is the Carl Gustaf M96. This is the long rifle for the Swedish military. We actually have a couple different variants. I have one of them here with me today to show you guys. The cool thing about these is these replace the Craig Jorgensen rifle with the Swedish military. Now, the Swedish military wasn't the only one to use the Craig Jorgensen rifle. We here in the United States used that as well. It was a Danish design. Ours were made by the Springfield Armory Factory, whereas Sweden did get theirs from the Danish. But they were looking for a new, more modern rifle to upgrade their military. They were a little bit ahead of us when it came to that. We didn't really come to the realization that the Craig Jorgensen rifle had some serious drawbacks, mainly in the loading mechanism, where it was a side gate single cartridge loading design that was fed from the magazine up into the chamber by the bolt and follower, not necessarily as quickly as say the Gewehr 88 or the Gewehr 98 would be. And we came to that realization after the Spanish-American War of the early 1900s. We were outgunned, quite frankly, by the Spanish. Even though we ended up winning the war, it was something where they had superior arms. Now, the Swedes realized this earlier, so they were looking for a rifle to switch from. So they found this particular one. This was designed and made by the Carl Gustaf factory. Chambered in Sweden 6.5 by 55. Now, in the way that there is nothing new under the sun, this is true for cartridges. We now see a resurgence of 6.5 cartridges. 6.5 PRC, there's 6.5 Creedmoor. The Swiss were really the first to do that, that 6.5 cartridge. Very different in terms of cartridge length and all, for sure, but they came out with this in 1896, actually a little bit before that. They developed that a little bit earlier than that, but it came into full bloom in the 1896 rifle, or the M96 as these would be designated. Most of the ones you see today are 1900s. This particular one is 1905. You'll see it with the Swedish seal, the Carl Gustaf Armory, as well as the date right underneath it. All of them are marked the same. These are all usually right around the same time. We have one from 1900. It's a little bit earlier. But they are very Mauserish in their design. So there's great inspiration here taken from the Model 98 Gewehr, or excuse me, the Gewehr 88, I should say. You will see some very big similarities with the M96 variant. The reason why I say that is when you look at something that would be somewhat contemporary in my personal collection. Here's an Argentine Mauser made by the Low Berlin factory in 1895, excuse me. And when you look at these two rifles, I mean, they're basically the same gun. Excuse me there. That's basically what you see. And that's true. There's great copying going on. Everyone was enamored with how like Low Berlin and stuff were making their rifles and how well they were working. So they kind of, if it's not broke, don't fix it, and then just tweak little things to make it their own. Mainly the calibers. That's usually where you see the main differences. So in this particular case, 6.5 by 55 Swede is what they did. It still features the Mauser action lock open on empty design with a bolt. Unlike the Swedish straight pulls, this is a rolling locking uh, uh, bolt, very similar to just pretty much everything of that era, featuring your safety switch right here to keep it from firing. Turn it back over. That fires the rifle. The bolt catch right here, you just pull out to remove the bolt. So there's not really a whole lot different, in terms of how this is designed by the Swedes. Now, the Swedes were notorious. We've seen the Husqvarna rifle and the human rifle. They put these little armor plates, so that way you could keep up with the changes made to the rifle, who did it, what armory. So it does feature that, just like all Swedish rifles would do. So nothing overtly different there. This is not one of them, and there is one in the shop that features a threaded barrel. Now, these were threaded at the factory. That's one of the variations of this that was really interesting. The threaded barrel was for a blank firing adapter for training and parades and such. So these actually, or some of them, were modified slightly so they could take this little blank firing adapter port on the end, and you could do your parades or your training with the same rifle in which you'd use, but not live fire. The sight system is a little bit different, and then it only goes out to 600 meters, which, to be fair, open sight, 600 meters. There are people who certainly could do it, but that's quite far enough for something like this. You see, like the 98s, the K98s, and all go out farther on their sight pictures, but the Swedes stuck with, I think, an acceptable distance for something like this. Now, the cartridge itself is an extremely good cartridge. In fact, we're kind of seeing a resurgence of the 6.5 Swede cartridge come back. We see quite a bit of it coming around, and these days in the shop, we stock it. As far as collector cartridges go, 6.5 Swede is not hard to get. There are some that are 7.5 Swiss, 303 British, things that as a collector, you have rifles that shoot them. It's getting pretty hard to find ammo for these days. No, it's not true for the Swedish. And it's mostly because they've used the same caliber all the way up through like the 60s. So there's a lot of rifles out there that feature that particular cartridge. As far as these particular rifles go, these were right in line with the best of the time. World War I and all, these would have been neck and neck with the Germans and even the French with their Berthier rifles. These were the pinnacle of firearm innovation at the time. Semi-auto, while certainly there was some experimentation going on, by World War I, we did do the Winchester model 1905, 1910. Of course, this one was made in 1905. It's still not it hasn't caught on. It's a lot more complicated to make. And you got to remember too, there was a cost effectiveness in mind when it comes to the design. So one of the reasons why the Craig Jorgensen rifle was chosen over, say, the Gewehr 88 and other things was because the U.S. military thought the side gate loading design would be slower to load, which would mean it had slower rate of fire, which would cost the U.S. Army less. True, not necessarily good for the soldier, but that is true. That's kind of the idea all around. Semi-auto is expensive to manufacture, much more complicated. These are pretty easy to put together. Plus, the rate of fire, certainly faster than the Craig Jorgensen rifle, but not to the point where you're blowing away, thousands and thousands and thousands of rounds. Someone who shot these, you take 100 rounds to the range with a 5-round internal box mag or 5-round internal magazine on the bolt action rifle. 100 rounds lasts a long time. They did speed up the loading with the stripper clip feature, which you see on most Mauser type rifles of their era, very much like this one. These are truly beautiful pieces, though. The Swiss rifles that we've had come through the shop lately have been in absolute gorgeous condition, and they're all over 100 years old. I mean, you got to think this is what, 119 years old, this rifle. And it is in amazing condition. Of course, we have one that's 124 years old in the shop right now from 1900. But we do hope that you come by and check these out. The history behind these is pretty cool. You know, served in the Swedish military all the way up through World War One and World War Two. So while the human rifle certainly was the more advanced rifle of the time, the semi-automatic rifle, they didn't have as many of them as they had these because they had been producing these for like 40 years at that point. So definitely this was your more common rifle you would see on the battlefield all the way up to the 1940s for sure, and the 1950s. But again, very cool. Come check us out. We do hope that you can come see all the different history pieces that we have. And till next time, please like, comment, subscribe. We'll keep bringing you more episodes each week featuring, you know, all the unique firearms that we can get our hands on. But thank you.